Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and I wanted to talk today about flying stock ESFs. And the reason I want to do that is because me and a lot of others are actually sinking money into our vehicles, and I know not everybody's up to doing that or has the funds available, and I want to teach you guys or show you how you can still be successful in the air. You don't need to really make your craft the most dominant one out there because ultimately skill is going to win, not your vehicle. Basically, this is going to be kind of my quick tutorial on how you can still be competitive in a stock aircraft. Now, one thing that's important to know is when you're attacking ground, hovering is a lot harder when you're flying the stock craft. The vehicle falls out of the sky a little bit quicker, and it's not impossible, and it still works, but it's just not the same. Now, when you're attacking ground, pods are obviously the best option, but since we're not spending those, the minigun does do work, and it's fine. It doesn't have nearly as much damage, though, so you really need to know how you can continuously put damage on your target. And ultimately, that's going to come down to maneuvers like the reverse maneuver and the banking turn, which I've talked about before. Most of the time, depending on the vehicle you're attacking, it's going to take several passes to get the kill. Now, this is going to be extended even further if there's somebody that's actually repairing it, like an engineer back there. So if you know there's an engineer back there, make sure that's the first target that you're actually taking out. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're hovering there and you're attacking a ground target, make sure that you're ready to use that afterburner. When you're hovering, your engines are pointing down, meaning if you hit the afterburn, you're going to shoot up pretty quick. That's really beneficial when you're actually got rockets coming at you, especially the unguided variety, so you can get out of the way. Keep in mind, too, that the back of tanks are vulnerable, so you want to make sure that you're positioning yourself so you can put the most damage on target as quickly as possible. When you've got an enemy tank that's actually moving forward, it's actually easier in playing to your vehicle because you're going to drift forward a little bit more when you're engaging them because you don't have an airframe on that's benefiting you there. So, pick your targets wisely and just make sure that you're, keeping on target and making sure most of your bullets are actually hitting. Now, one benefit to the stock build is that you've got the external afterburner tanks, and that's something that a lot of people don't actually have. Most people are choosing to use the lock-on missiles or the pods, and that's going to really help you out when you're deciding to try and run from the enemy's lock-on missiles, and you can actually do that fairly well unless they're right on top of you. So just know that that's an option. It's also good if you just need to get out of a situation. It's going to pretty much make you the fastest thing in the sky because most people don't actually have that. Now, when you're engaging air, those afterburners actually help you there too. Not just because you can run away, but you can also kind of pop that afterburner to pull some more advanced maneuvers. It can maybe just shoot your elevation a little bit higher so you can position yourself to engage the enemy in a way that's going to benefit you. It's also going to help you when you're doing things like the reverse maneuver in the air, making sure that you're kind of looping around and putting distance to your target so you can line up your shots. Now, enemies are going to have lock-on missiles, or at least some of them will, so it's important to make sure that you're closing the distance and getting ready to get into these spins that you're seeing on the screen. Now, the reason that I'm talking about these spins is because this is what almost every dogfight in this game comes down to, and it happens like this for a couple of reasons. One is because we've gotten so used to people using lock-on launchers that we can't just run away because they're just going to sit there and lock on and take care of us. It's hard for them to get that lock when we're actually spinning around. The other reason is most of the time you're not going to be in head-on-head situations, and the enemy or you is going to be turning around to face your attacker, meaning you're just going to kind of develop into these spins, trying to keep the other person off you and keep you on target. This is just kind of how it ends up. So the important thing to know is that you want to make sure that you're trying to kill your momentum by holding S while you're doing these turns. It's going to make your turn sharper and crisper and going to help you keep up with whatever airframe they're using. You can also use your afterburner, like I mentioned before, to kind of pop away and separate yourself so you can get your line of sight and see if you can position yourself better so you can actually take out the target. The last thing I want to hit on real quick is that there's actually a benefit to using the slower firing primary. It just basically means that you can be a little bit more spammy with it because your bullets last longer, and ultimately it's just more forgiving. You should still try and burst fire and get as many shots on target as possible, but you can get away with a little bit more spam with this particular weapon. Alright guys, so let's talk about how you're going to actually be spending your certs. Since we've already established that you're not going to be using station cache, things like breaker pods or photon pods or hellfire pods, those are all really expensive and they're going to take you a long time to rack up to that. So let's build your craft up a little bit to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. Now, with the ESFs, increasing your passive systems is going to be important, but I suggest you just kind of do this as you play. Now, personally, I think I've got mine to about this point to 6. That being said, I rarely ever need another aircraft 360 seconds later. I probably could get by in this range, but let's assume that you're newer or you're just getting into flying. You want to make sure that you start buffing this up kind of just in between some of your other unlocks. Try and find something that matches how long you actually live in the vehicle, because then you'll be able to come back and get another one and keep practicing. But ultimately, the first thing that you really need to unlock is going to be right here. It's going to be in the utility slot, and it's going to be your flares. At 100 certs, this is going to make sure that you can break a lock on, so any missile that's on your tail is going to be diverted, and then it's going to be harder for anybody to lock onto you for 5 seconds. That's great. Now, flares get expensive really fast. 200 certs for the second tier, 500 for third, and 1,000. And even at the top tier, the highest level is 25 seconds. So it's not a great value at the top. I personally only have it to here, because how many times are you getting locked onto and you're staying put long enough to get locked on again? Now, if you're being chased by another enemy, that's in the air, yes, that's going to happen quite frequently, but if there's somebody on your tail, you're going to be turning and engaging them. You're not going to be sticking around for 25 seconds with somebody on your tail, hoping to God you don't die. So, really, the first tier of flares is all you're really going to need. The second unlock is going to be the composite armor. I talked a little bit in the state of the game and talked about how there's so much flak out there right now. The bursters are really prevalent. You've got the sky guards and the phalanx turrets, and those are really going to be your primary threat when you're in the air. So at 100 certs, the first tier is going to buy you an additional 15% damage reduction against flak. That's by far one of the most important things. Now, we talked about lock-ons a little bit, so the vehicle stealth makes some sense, but at the first tier, it's only going to save you a quarter of a second of lock-on. At the top tier, which is 1,000 certs, it's only going to increase it by 1 second. That time goes by really fast. It's just not a good value, so really stick to the composite armor because it's going to do you better in the long run. Your third unlock is where it's going to vary a little bit based on your faction, and it's going to kind of play to the strengths of the vehicle that you're flying. For NC, the Reaver, it's okay overall stock. All of them are okay overall stock, but you want to really make sure that you're picking a specialized role. So when we're talking about the Reaver, if you want to fight other aircraft and take that A to A role, you've already got the afterburners, which is great, and you've got the best afterburners on the Reaver. So to kind of complement that, I would suggest maybe considering the dogfight. Make yourself a little bit more agile while in the air. That's going to cost you 100 certs, and it's going to kind of overcome some of the hindrances that you have in the Reaver. Some people call it the flying brick. If you want a better all-around craft, by far my favorite is the hover stability airframe. It kind of makes you a little bit more nimble in the air. Not as much as the dogfight, but the improved vertical thrust helps you pull some maneuvers as well. And then it's going to help you hovering when you're attacking ground targets. Now, on a stock ESF, you fall out of the air pretty quick, so having something that's going to help you stay up for a little bit longer is going to be important. It gives you a more stable firing platform. Now, for the Scythe, the airframe that I would really recommend would be the dogfighting airframe. You're going to highlight the attributes of it's already one of the most agile crafts in the game. It's very quick to turn, and ultimately this is going to really play to that. Now, if you want to attack the ground, most of these fall out of the sky really quick. However, the Scythe already hovers pretty well even at its stock level, so I wouldn't even suggest that. Now, you could overcome its slow speed by throwing on the racer, but I think for the Scythe, increasing the agility of the craft is really important, and that's why I would suggest getting the dogfight. Now, for the Mazda, kind of like the Scythe, I like the idea of playing to its strengths, which is why I would suggest using the racer high-speed airframe. All of these first tiers are going to cost you 100 certs. This is going to really make you the fastest thing in the sky. And overall, it's great. Now, the hover isn't a bad option, kind of like on the Reaver, because it's going to make you better when you're actually attacking the ground. But since you don't really have pods in this build, you might want to consider doing more strafes versus hovering still and actually unleashing your machine gun. You don't really need the dogfighting frame just because it's already nimble and you get more bang for your buck, which I feel like I keep saying, out of the racer frame. So, we're up to 300 certs. Now, this is where the price starts to increase just a little bit. I would go back and get your second tier of composite armor. This is going to help you stay alive longer. It's going to cost you 200 certs. Following that, I would get your second tier of whichever airframe you choose to go with. The first frame is going to be an immediate improvement. The second tier is where you're really going to see the main difference and the craft starts to feel a lot better. So right now, we're up to 700 certs total, plus whatever you actually did in your acquisition timer. So let's say you're probably somewhere between 8 and 900 certs. For that, you have already got a pretty good craft, and it's something that you can build up and use the kills you're getting as you're improving your vehicle to pimp your ride a little bit more. Alright, so that's going to wrap up this episode of Captain's Log. Hopefully what you're taking away from this is that you don't need the meanest machine in the skies to be one of the biggest threats in the skies. It's going to come down to skill, so make sure you're practicing your maneuvers and you're certing up your vehicle smart as you get more kills, and the certs come a lot faster as the skill level increases. So, good hunting. Hope you guys got something out of this. If you liked it, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Take care.